Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett. Happy to be back in Washington. My thanks to my colleagues who filled in for me while I was away. Tonight on America Decides. Listen up. One of the biggest religious and immigration stories of the late 19th and early 20th century America was the arrival of European Catholics. They settled and worked in big cities: Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and yes, Chicago. Probably coincidentally, America found itself first an emerging, then obvious superpower at the same time. So much so that the idea of an American pope was not serious, too hazardous, it was thought, to attach the global church to a first emerging, then realized global industrial and political power. Until this afternoon, that assumption was thought to still hold true. Until, for the first time in the history of the Catholic Church, it was not. To the thunderstruck surprise of experienced, I mean really experienced Vatican watchers and the tens of thousands joyously arrayed around St. Peter's, the name Robert Frances Prevost was spoken. An American from Chicago, a graduate of Villanova, just north of Philadelphia, was the new Pope. Pope Leo XIV, he shall be. An American successor to Pope Francis. Pope Leo XIV spoke of universal love, bridge building, peace, and service. In the past, Cardinal Prevost had expressed some sympathy with critics of Vice President J.D. Vance's theological argument that there are hierarchies of love, that outsiders or non-citizens naturally receive less of that love than, say, for example, a family member, close friend, or a citizen. Whether Pope Leo XIV's election was meant as an American counterweight within the Vatican to Vance's theological construct or global hostility to immigrants in general, only the elected cardinals know the answer to that. But the first American pope will doubtless, for a time, electrify Catholics here and likely the Americas, with consequences theological and possibly political to come. So we begin tonight with columnist for the National Catholic Reporter, Michael Sean Winters. Michael, let's just ask you, how surprised are you? What do you think the prospects of Pope Leo XIV are for the Church, for America, for Catholicism?
I was not hugely surprised. I had prepared 3 analyses for the White Smoke, and he was one of the 3. And so I had that up in about 15 minutes, posted at the National Catholic Reporter. I think it's important to remember the Cardinals didn't view him as an American candidate. It was very interesting when he came out onto the balcony. He began in Italian, obviously. He's been elected the Bishop of Rome. But then he switched to Spanish, not to English. And this is a man who spent 2/3 of his career outside of the United States, most of it in Peru, and not just in Peru, but in very impoverished rural areas of Peru. And he was very successful in his ministry there, in recruiting native vocations and in schooling them to take over the leadership positions in that area. And then he came to Rome, first to be the head of the Augustinian order, which is a worldwide order. And so he had to travel to the 50 countries where they have houses. Then he was back in Peru as a bishop, and then came back to Rome 2 years ago for a really tough job, a desk job, you know, but a job that you can't fake. There are jobs in the Vatican you can fake. Prefect of the Congregation for Bishops is not one of them. And he developed a reputation for somebody who was very effective, not afraid to make difficult decisions, but always with this heart for the poor that we saw in Pope Francis. And I think that will be his message. And for the United States, with our, consumer culture, and especially with the, kind of lifestyle of the incumbent of the White House, I can't think of anything more countercultural than a man who's taken a vow of poverty and lived it all of his adult life.
Michael, how were you able to see what others didn't really see? The chances that this particular American and Pan-American cardinal would be a top contender, and how much or how meaningful is it for the Church and its future that this does seem to be an endorsement of continuity with Francis's approach to the papacy?
So, it was funny. The American cardinals I spoke with, before Pope Francis died, at the last conclave, they always said, the American passport, it's just a deal breaker. But I wasn't hearing that from the Spanish cardinals or the Latin American cardinals, or critically, the Vatican cardinals. They were like, we don't care. We like the guy. We're not electing the country. We're electing the man. And so I had a sense that his combination of managerial skills and a kind of understated charisma, and as you just touched on, they wanted to send the message that we want a pope who is going to be in continuity with Francis, both in terms of his welcoming that the new pope spoke to, but also with a commitment to the poor and to a real sense that, solidarity, the politics of the church is different from secular politics. You always have a winner and a loser in secular politics. The church's teaching on solidarity says, everyone should be a winner in this, but with a special preferential option for the poor, the marginalized. We always, have a heart for the people who are the uns, the undocumented, the unemployed, the unborn, those who are defined by society by what they lack. Those are the people that have a special place in the heart of the church.
And Michael, very quickly, what might you say to those enthusiasts who were there, who were shouting USA, USA?
Obviously, we were a missionary church 200 years ago, so this is a real kind of sense of becoming moment. But I just want to push back against the idea he's an American pope. He has a passport. He was born in Chicago and all that. But the pope belongs to the whole world. And I think, he showed that again by going into Spanish, not English, from the loggia this afternoon.
Incredibly valuable perspective. Michael Sean Winters, thank you so very much. I want to bring in CBS News papal contributor Candida Moss. Candida, how was your day? How did it play out for you? Give us your reaction.
Well, it was a profoundly emotional moment, and it was also quite a shocking one. I don't think anyone really anticipated an American pope, and then an American pope who would come out and speak in Spanish. So this was a profoundly moving day for everyone who was there, and we now have, as Michael Sean Winters was saying, we have a pope who is really a pope of the whole world. He's a Peruvian citizen as well. He has traveled widely. He has held offices at the Vatican. He has been a bishop in Peru. He has been a pastor, a missionary, and he has a doctorate in canon law. So he really encompasses everything that the global church has to offer.
And Candida, there are two issues confronting the Vatican. One that seems more contemporary, meaning right in front of it, some financial issues, and one that has been part of the conversation globally, but certainly here in America for the past decade, if not longer, the sex abuse scandal. Do we have any insight at all into how Pope Leo XIV might approach one or the other or both?
Well, Pope Leo has a history in administration, and he actually majored in maths. So we might think that he's going to approach these financial issues with a level head. At the same time, there have been some accusations that he mishandled an investigation into a case in Peru, and that when he was in Chicago, he failed to notify a Catholic school about a predatory priest who lived nearby. Now, I will say he has vocal defenders, but I'm sure that survivors groups will be concerned looking at this. But we all hope that he will continue Pope Francis's legacy and perhaps, given his background in canon law, really cement into church law a lack of tolerance for those who are silent.
And there is a question of continuity, but also for conservative Catholics in America, they were hoping for a pope who would be more clear, offer more clarity on doctrine and the history of the church. How do you think Pope Leo XIV may or may not satisfy that particular perspective or desire?
Well, Pope Leo XIV is a centrist. He's a moderate. He shares Pope Francis's interest in social justice, the poor, and the environment. But he's been more traditional on issues like the family, LGBT inclusion. Now, those statements were made during Pope Benedict XVI's reign, so it remains to be seen how he will move ahead. But he does seem like more of a moderate candidate who will satisfy aspects of the left and the right and frustrate both groups as well.
We could not have gotten off to a better start than that. Candida Moss and our other guest, Michael Sean Winters. Thank you both so very much. Candida, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.